How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about X. This is from 2022 and is put out by A24. This is directed by Ty West. If you're horror fans, you might be familiar with that name. He put out The Innkeepers, which is a really good movie I'm surprised I haven't covered yet. He also did House of the Devil and The Sacrament, so he's made a few really good things. This movie stars Brittany Snow, Jenna Ortega, who we just saw in Scream, right? And also Scott Mescud and Mia Goth. And this is about a movie crew who is driving in their van to the middle of nowhere in Texas, and they're going to rent a cabin, and secretly in this cabin, they plan on shooting an adult film. However, the older couple that owns the land, the wife is going to see this, and the old woman is going to get very triggered, and it will turn into a slasher movie. And I guess the first thing we should mention is the title. The title is obviously inspired by the original X rating, which would eventually get replaced by the NC-17 rating. But that being said, this movie is rated R. It's a hard R, but it's not X. So for those of you who are a little worried this movie be too big and too extreme, it's a hard R, and if you've seen that, you know what it will be. And also, for those of you who wanted the biggest, most extreme, crazy, over-the-top thing ever, it's still really good, but it's not, like, not shocking, you know? Which I do have to say, the title here, it may not really be a reference to the X rating. I mean, that's obviously what inspired it. But several times in the film they talk about the X factor, the sense of life and magnetism and energy that's, you know, hard to explain, you know. But they'll say, you have the X factor, which is probably what the title's really referencing. But overall, it's still a good hard R. Lots of gore, lots of crazy moments. But you do get some things like when you see them actually filming the adult movie and the characters step outside and go, that was the craziest thing ever, craziest thing I've ever seen. We're gonna make $1 million with this insane movie. But you as an audience have just seen like a standard R-rated sex scene, you know? There are a few moments when you're like, okay, this isn't really rated X. But that's fine. It still is a really good, really well-crafted horror movie, and one of the better slashers I've seen in a while. And there are a few key things. The cinematography is really nice, really beautiful, but I feel that in other horror movies, sometimes they go, good, clean cinematography, right? This looks beautiful. But that's not necessarily what you want in a horror movie. You gotta make it look scary, and a lot of cinematographers forget this. But this movie, it's really nice, well-shot country scenes, and it still is scary. They bring in the grunge, and they bring in the realism, which is very important. So, it's beautiful, but still scary. You know, you really feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere, and like, especially when the sun goes down, you really do feel like you're walking around late at night, and it's pretty scary. Also, the editing is really good. Several ironic cuts. For example, the lemonade scene. There's a scene in the adult film where they're drinking lemonade and there's lots of sexual tension and innuendos. And they intercut that with one of the actors who is drinking lemonade with the old woman before she goes crazy. And it's a much, you know, low-key scene, and you get the sense that something's wrong. So when they play these two lemonade scenes together, you really do get the contrast. There's also a few really good song placements in here, and I always gotta, you know, give major props when they use songs, right? Some songs that you've definitely heard before, and you're like, okay, cool, this works in the movie. And also, I gotta say something, and I know I'm not the first person to say this, but this is a much better Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel than the one Netflix just put out. And I know a few people have said that before, but it really is worth reiterating. This is, if you're fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, definitely go and watch this as soon as you can. It has that, kids in a van going to the middle of nowhere and true crime styled things ensue. The sense of neglect and realism from the first Chainsaw movie is replicated here much better than really any of the sequels. And yeah, if you're Chainsaw fans, absolutely don't miss this. And yeah, there is definitely a ton of Chainsaw references, and also references to other horror movies. If you're a horror movie geek, you're like, oh, that car is kind of like the car in Psycho, or oh, that door is kind of like the door from The Shining, or there's an alligator, that's kind of like the alligator from Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive, which is a same guy who made Texas Chainsaw. But the thing with these references is they're definitely there, and I definitely do like them, but they're not over the top. They don't really hit you in the face, So nice, clear inspirations without being obnoxious. So yeah, I definitely did like the sense of honoring the old slashers there, Anyway, without further ado, I do want to go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers. I do want to analyze the film, though. I'll just be avoiding the end bits. Anyway, we open up with the police. It's the morning after the movie, and it's a huge bloody mess. And you can see a bunch of sheets covering dead bodies, so you can tell someone died there, but it's kind of a mystery as to who died. And they begin to investigate. Now, I feel like this "but how did we get here" trope, a lot of people really hate it nowadays. I don't really know why, I guess since Rick and Morty pointed it out. But yeah, this trope is going to get some people upset. Personally, I find that it's an interesting opening, wondering how each of the bodies got to where they got. And I feel it's a clever way of reinventing the true crime concept, The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre had the voiceover, and then they had the photos. But here, getting to see a police investigation and going, how did we get here? I thought it was a good sense of mystery and a good sense of true crime. But I know not everybody's a fan of this. But I did like wondering, okay, who's going to die right there? And maybe if they set it up a little better where you saw like every single one of the bodies. I don't know. But I personally liked it. And then obviously we jump to 24 hours earlier. And we get a bunch of young adults in a van. And they're heading down to a remote cabin in the middle of nowhere in Texas. And when I saw this, they're in Texas, they're in a van, right away I'm like, oh cool, we're doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff. And yeah, we really are. But we get to meet all the different people. The oldest one is the producer, and he's really excited to be making this movie because he thinks it'll be a big hit. There's actually an interesting thing. This is 1979, and they're talking about how home video is coming out. And home video is going to change the way movies come out, and it really did. This is like right before the Blockbuster era, but they also talk about the influence for adult films and how you won't have to go to the theaters. You can instead take it home and enjoy it in private. And that's really is going to change the industry. So they're going to release this film direct to video. You also get the writer-director who's there, and he's going to also be shooting the movie. And he wants to make this movie, but he really is a fan of movies, and he doesn't want to just make an adult film. He wants to make a good movie, and he feels like a lot of adult films just plop the camera down, don't do anything, but he's like, hey, we're going to actually make a cinematic feeling around this thing. So he's very artsy, he's very into it. I kind of wonder if this is supposed to be a reference to Wes Craven's adult film, The Fireworks Woman. It might be, he made an adult film, but he made it very artsy. But anyway, moving along, we also have Jenna Ortega's character, who is the director's girlfriend, who they constantly call Church Mouse. She's quieter, and she's really not familiar with this world, and you can tell she's tagging along to help her boyfriend out, and she's going to be doing the boom mic. But she's, an interesting character, seeing her start to, understand all this. Also, you have the three actors, which really could have been disposable characters, two girls and a guy, but they really aren't. They really take the time and define these actors and, you know, kind of what led them to be doing this. And you get to see, like, the guy is a really funny character, and he talks about how he used to be in the army, so when things start to go crazy, he's a little more prepared than everybody else. So I really do like they defined all their characters. They, of course, get to the people they're renting the cabin from. And right off the bat, there's a little bit of tension between the two groups. You can tell they really don't trust each other. And they go into the cabin, and it's, you know, a small cabin in the woods. Really, a little shed, you know, more than a shed, but it's not a huge place. And they go in there and they go about their business, and this is where you get kind of the slow burn element of the movie, you know? It's not boring, but it definitely takes its time. There's no unnecessary jump scares, there's no random people showing up to get killed. It takes the time where you see the characters processing and doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you get to know each one of the characters a little bit. And so yeah, a little bit of a slow burn element here. You get to see them shooting the movie, you get to see Jenna Ortega try to understand this world, you get to see a little bit of the movie they're actually shooting, which I did like all the clips from the movie. Again, this movie isn't really rated X, so don't worry, there's nothing too extreme. You also get to see one of the stars of the movie wander around and explore the property a little bit, where she'll meet the old woman before she gets triggered, and you kind of get to understand her character a little better, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into that. The killer in this movie is an old woman. She'll see the young people frolic about, and she'll get upset, and her motivation is actually pretty interesting. She is too old to get into all this stuff, but she's really upset that her life didn't pan out exactly how she wants it to, so she wishes she had done more, and she's in a place where she physically can't, and that's going to really upset her, and it's going to send her down this killing spree. And also, I really do like that this is a slasher movie with a different kind of killer. You know, you don't really get too many old woman killers, so I do love when they change things up like this. So that was pretty cool. Also, the kills are pretty good. Lots of blood and guts, lots of violence. You even open up like the first scene is a stabbing, and a stabbing could be relatively standard, but here we see her stab this guy a bunch of times, and you can see her get more focused and more intense and more into it. You know, plus the blood splatters on some headlights, and it turns into like a Dario Argento movie with some bright red lighting, you know? So yeah, pretty good. I mean, there are a few moments here and there with the kills where I wish there was a little bit more of a pop, but nothing really to complain about. For the most part, a really good slasher movie, and this was another thing I was a little worried about. Sometimes when you get an art house film, they focus so much on being an art house film that they don't actually think about the genre they're supposed to be adapting. But here, it's a really good art house movie, it's a really good slasher movie, both at the same time. And there were definitely some surprises along the way. Some characters you think are definitely going to die sooner, and then they live and survive, and that surprises you. And you get to find out a little bit more about what exactly the old people are doing, and it's a little bit more than you might think. Oh, they were doing that the whole time. You know, so there is a little bit more to be added, and it definitely does play out in a really interesting way. And I did like the surprises, you know? So, overall, a good art house movie and a good slasher movie at the same time. A good slow burn that builds up and then definitely does go crazy towards the end. And I really did like it. Now, if you guys like this movie, I would recommend staying through the credits. Apparently, they've already shot a prequel to this movie, so before this movie even comes out, they have a second one ready to go. I think it's called Pearl? But if you stay through the credits, you can actually see a teaser trailer for this movie, so yeah, teaser trailer for the next one. That's pretty crazy at the end of the first one. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. And to everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my 2022 playlist. You can see me talk about the new Scream, which also had Jenna Ortega in it. You can see me talk about the Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I also covered Cursed recently on here as well. So yeah, it's still pretty early in the year. The playlist is kind of young, but I'm definitely looking forward to watching more movies this year, and it will get filled out over time. But if you want to see me talk about 2022 movies, you can find them in this playlist here. Have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.